So the big news in the objectivist universe, let's say, for the last couple of weeks is Alex Epstein's new book, Fossil Future. So for many people who are interested in ideas, Alex is someone who we look up to. So usually Alex and Yaron are the reason many new activists enter the objectivist movement, because they're charismatic, they are good, they are excellent communicators, they have quite a following, and they seem to be also happy people, which is very important in terms of looking up to someone. So what I want to do today is try to figure out what is the secret, let's say, of success of Alex. And I have with me Amanda. So Amanda is also someone who has, you've studied hard in your life, you've done different things, you have been into intellectual circles, and you also know Alex personally, let's say, not that well, but you have been in the same circles, and you have met him. Because I have to say, I've never actually interacted with Alex in any way. So what we will discuss today is my understanding in terms of how I have followed his work, how I have followed not only his intellectual, let's say, work on fossil fuels, for example, but also his Human Flourishing Project, where he goes through his methods. So, Amanda, I have here a list of 6 things that are the keys to success of Alex. And also, we haven't prepped for this. So, but if I had to start with you, so what's your experience with Alex, and how have you experienced him in terms of what has made him so successful? Because again, why is he successful? Because he has written 2 books now that have changed the agenda on how we understand climate. Not we, like objectivist aficionados, even policymakers and the wider public. His books are bestsellers, so there's definitely something there that we can learn things from. So what has been your experience with Alex, and what would be your short pitch, let's say, on what has made him that successful?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that add up to Alex's success. One is that he appears to be very driven towards, like, in an efficient way towards meeting a goal. He seems very good at that. Sort of related to that is his level of clarity surrounding, like, the issues that he's talking about. So that's sort of one component, is the material he's very familiar with. He's very driven towards a goal and good at and efficacious at achieving it. But I think the other thing is that Alex, it's like he's doing the thing that's just perfect for Alex, which is a little bit, I don't know, it's harder to capture why that is, but it's clear that he's found something that he's good at and that he loves doing. And I think that's the second part. So I'm one of those people that looked up to Alex for, forever. I don't know, forever, but and I always thought, I want to do something like Alex, but it's me. And it took me some time to figure out what would that mean. At first it was, I'm going to do what Alex did, but for genetic engineering.
GMO, yeah.
But then I was like, that's not really me. And so I figured it out now that it's, you have to figure out what it is that you're really passionate about. So it's something about knowing yourself really well, and then go all in on that goal. And then if you can get the other things down, like the efficient, setting your goals and efficiently achieving them, and then like a level of clarity on whatever it is that you're trying to be an expert in. That's the key.
The 2 things you said, I said I have a list of 6 things. They fit with more than one thing in my list. But also, I've talked to Tal, and Tal mentioned this actually also publicly, that it's a big trap for people to say, I want to do what Alex does in X.
Yeah.
Because what Tal says, have you actually met Alex? Do you know how difficult it is, what he's doing, and what is the level of work he has done? And also the fact that he has actually also failed in the early stages. He has done things that didn't work. He has switched sometimes from projects that weren't that successful. So it's not that, it's only if I find that area and then I'll do a lot of work and all will be well. It's something very, 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 very difficult, and it requires a particular type of character, according again to people who know Alex. So the first thing I have in my list, which in some ways is also the most difficult, is specialize. So Alex he has worked on in a previous, let's say, stage of his career with foreign policy. He has been good on writing on different things, but then he said, I want to do this thing. And now we know that he's the guy who talks about energy. So finding this niche where you're going to go all in is one of, let's say, the keys of his success. And from my experience with in the objectivist circle, many people are telling me you have to find this and be good in one thing. Don't aim into being a generalist. Now, counterpoint. We have some generalists that are very, very successful. Yaron is the obvious example, who you could say he's Yaron and Alex, I mentioned them as the two perhaps most successful objectivist public intellectuals. So what's your take? And as our common friend John Watkins says, it takes a particular level of specialization to become a good generalist. So even becoming a good generalist requires some specialization. So what's your take on this specialization versus generalist thing?
I don't know how I feel about that. So I was thinking about Leonardo da Vinci and like, what would his LinkedIn profile look like, right? He couldn't say like, I'm a scientist, I'm also an artist. And like, I think there's like, we're not really very accepting of that anymore, where you have a very specialized field. And then I wonder like, but if I think about myself or like Leonardo da Vinci, it'd be like, well, what are we going to say about him? Like he was an amazing guy and he did the things that he wanted. And for me, like I'm a scientist, but then I'm also a writer and I do podcasting. I mean, I'm kind of all over the place too. I mean, part of that is that I'm looking for my passion. And so, I feel like I'm still in the stage where I'm searching around for something that's going to be like the amazing thing. So I don't know how I feel about the specialization thing. And also think about, I don't know about special. So when you say specialization, I guess I think about, having expertise on a narrow subject matter, or maybe a skill, like I'm a carpenter, or maybe within carpentry, like I only work on like the wood inside of elevators or something like that. So yeah, I mean, that can help because it gives people, when you meet someone, you can tell them exactly what it is that you do. And it's pretty clear. Whereas I have this problem. It's like, well, how do I introduce myself in terms of what I do? I usually say that I'm an astrophysicist, but that's just because then it gives me an excuse to say like, here, I do all these other crazy things. And people are like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think specialization, though, I don't know, to me, it means, or what's good about that is that you're doing something that is perfect for you. So you're going with who it is and what you love and doing that. So I think of the example that comes to mind is there's this guy who was on TV. It's like on the Home Improvement channel. His name is Ty Pennington. I don't know if anybody remembers this guy, but this guy, he was all over the Home Improvement channel. He very high energy, liked to be outside, working on things. Like he was great on camera because he was kind of, he was in your face and very excited. And I learned a little bit more about him, and it said he had like ADHD and like that was kind of his personality. And I thought he did it. He nailed it. Like he's got this personality where he is kind of all over the place and very high energy, and likes to be outside and likes to, be in your face and excited all the time. And he found the perfect career for Ty Pennington. And that's the kind of thing that I think about as specialization. It's knowing yourself really well. It's not just the subject matter that you're interested in. So it's not just like I'm interested in home improvement or being on camera, but it's also how do you like to work and can you integrate that into your life?
I couldn't agree more on that. And here's again what I said, Tal's words. Are you sure people you want to be exactly like Alex? So again, this specialization is not for everyone. And we said that Yaron is a generalist. Let me push it 2 stages beyond that. Yaron, while being a generalist, was also running ARI. And while running ARI, he has his hedge fund business. So for some people, their specialization is to be generalist. And again, knowing Yaron, I don't know Alex, but I do know Yaron. He's very, very happy. And he finds this generalist attitude very, very fulfilling. So specialize definitely works for Alex. Question mark whether it can work for everyone. The second point, I think, is paramount to everyone, and it is finding good working systems. And Alex Epstein is obsessed with finding working systems. So I encourage people to check out his project, the Human Flourishing Project. It was a podcast. I'm not sure if it's, I don't think it's still on, but he talks about how he processes knowledge and how he processes things like rejuvenation, or what he calls relaxed productivity. And following this, you understand that he invests a lot of time in this, but also he applies it. So having a working system is super important. The difficulty with a working system is that you can fall to finding more and more and more things and not sticking to one thing. And then you are in the search for this perfect system. And until you find it, you don't follow any system at all. So Alex is very big, for example, on time blocking. Wherever I've done time blocking, I've had the most productive days of my life. Unfortunately, these days were literally 2 or 3. I'm not kidding you, people. In the last years, I've had 3 super productive days, and it was the 3 days that I did the time blocking. I couldn't follow through even for a second day. And I'll finish, and I'll get back to Amanda with this example that I've heard from a gym bro. Actually, not a gym bro, a professional trainer. So the professional trainer said, I would rather you follow the crappiest program, the crappiest gym program, but follow it consistently rather than switching from program to program every day or every week. And unfortunately, whether we talk about my gym life or my work life, I switch from sometimes, waking up early, sometimes I do. So I don't have a working system, and I can tell you, I'm a testament to how much I'm losing from not having a working system. So Alex has a good working system. He's big, he advocates it, he produces content about working system, and I think it's a major key to his success. What do you think about this, Amanda?
Yeah, so it sounds like you're saying he's figured out how Alex works most efficiently. Right. Exactly. And like part of that is time blocking. I don't know what else that he does. Yeah, that's huge. Like if you can't figure out a way to work efficiently, you're in trouble, right? So I don't know about time blocking in particular. I can tell you, like Jean Maroney, if you go to thinkingdirections.com, she's got a whole bunch of practical tools to help you to be more efficient at work and to troubleshoot when, motivational problems occur, and, all sorts of things that are practical advice. So I guess what I would say is that it's not going to look the same for everyone. I'm glad that time blocking works for Alex. Maybe it works for you. Maybe for me, that's not my style, and I work more efficiently in a different way or a different manner.
And again, I'll bring up Don here, Don Watkins, who actually is a personal friend. He has worked with Alex, and he has told me, and he's told in public, that time blocking doesn't work for him. So things that work for Alex, for someone else who is also a high achiever and someone who is very productive, they don't work for him. So, but here we try to reverse engineer Alex and not.
Okay. So yeah, it's a place to start. Like you said, if, like any gym program is a good one in that, like you're actually experimenting and trying to see what works, and that's good. So if it's time blocking is a place to start, awesome, do it.
Okay, have you got any particular tip or any particular idea in terms of a working program, that one thing that you want to share in terms of working very well for you?
I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm always continually troubleshooting myself. So I can tell you what I came up with like just a couple of days ago that's been amazing. Okay, so I realized that I have an issue with making decisions where I'll have a number of different tasks that I have to do, and I understand that they're important, and I probably even understand the order, most likely, that they're important. But I'll sit and kind of think about for way too long, like an insane amount of time, which one should I do next? And then especially when I'm not particularly interested in doing any of them, it's like these things that need to be done. So I'm kind of in this threat-based motivation anyway. And I realize that it's often more important to make a decision than it is the particular decision that you make. But still, even knowing this, like I just couldn't execute on it. So I listened to Penn Jillette. He's one of my heroes. He's a magician. And he just wrote a fiction book called Random. Anyway, he talks about this thing called dice life. And so what it is that you do is, okay, so if you rolled a pair of dice, right, you get a number from 2 to 12, right? They add up to a number. And there's only one way to make 2, which is, for me, you get two alien heads. And so there's a very low probability that you'll get a 2 versus a 7. There's lots of ways to make a 7. Okay, so you write down, from the numbers 2 to 12, and then you write like what you think is, I don't know, what you want to do or what's important to you, and you assign those tasks the different numbers. And I might even assign like low probability play, like I'm going to go for a walk or watch TV or something on there as well, just because I want to give it a chance to actually happen. And then I roll the dice, I look up the number, and I do whatever the dice tells me. And it's been like really efficient to help me work over the past like 2-3 days. So that's the kind of experimentation that I do.
Okay, so this reminds me something else that Alex talks a lot about, particularly on the Human Flourishing Project, I think the episode on relaxed productivity. He says the difficult decision of what to do versus how to do it. So he says you wake up and you have to decide where to spend your energy, but this also takes effort. So that's why what he does is that he says that he spends a lot of time on Sundays. Sometimes he says he spends a whole Sunday, which to me sounds inconceivable, on what he's going to do in the week. And therefore, and this includes things like jiu-jitsu, seeing friends, all that stuff. Now, again, this is completely alien to me and to how I work, but then maybe that's why I'm not as productive as Alex. But there's something, you could say that this is the exact opposite with rolling the dice, but in a way it's not, because you know what is to be done and you commit to what you're going to do when. Now, he commits by the timetable, you commit by the dice, but in a way, the principle, I see it as the same, and that's the same principle. Know what you're doing and when you're going to do what. Okay, third thing that I've reversed engineered for Alex is a success, which is having mentors. So he talks a lot. So obviously he has worked Alex worked for years in ARI. It was a time where he was working with Yaron, he was working with Onkar, and he mentions very often how Onkar has helped him clarify many things, has helped him how to think. And also he has made a special reference to Greg Salmieri. He helped him a lot in the first book. Greg also helped me with the Tribalist book, and I can testify to what a brilliant mentor he is. He's the best mentor I've ever had in terms of getting the amount of help I got. So even if you're brilliant like Alex, you can benefit from mentors, and it's nice that he's acknowledging it. And I don't think this needs much chewing. It's very obvious. Have good mentors. We're very happy in the Objectivist universe. Those of us who work with these people, I consider myself very lucky for that.
Yeah, it's not just mentors. I think about it as you can contact people that will help you. So one of the things that I've noticed is, especially when you're young, but sort of at any age, if you are clear about what it is that you want, there are people that will help you. And all you have to do is to contact them. Lots of ways to do that. Twitter, LinkedIn, I don't know, and say, hey, I see what you did. I'm really into X. Do you think you can help me with this question? Or I'd love to meet with you and see how do you get a career like that? Those types of things are almost always very well received. And I used to think like, oh, I'm bothering them, or no one's going to take the time. And it's actually been, my experience is the exact opposite, that almost everybody says yes. So.
And it reminds me a story which is completely unrelated to objectivism. I've talked about David Goggins as the guy who wrote the book Can't Hurt Me, Ultra Marathon. So his philosophy might not sit in very well with many objectives, but whatever. So he's a guy who believes, you have to do things that you suffer, and through this you become better. Anyway, I'm getting somewhere else with that. So he when he was young, he had a horrible, as bad childhood as it can get. He basically had an abusive father, and then he had no masculine presence, no father figure in his life. So at some point, he comes across this parachuting teacher, a guy in the military, and he's so obsessed with him that he sees a seminar by him, whatever. And in the pre-internet era, he keeps calling military bases to say, is this guy who did this, is it there? He managed to find him, and he calls him and says, can I come and live with you for a month? Now, this is a random kid, 16 years old, who calls out and says, can I live with you with a month and do whatever you do? Surprisingly, the guy says, yeah, sure. So he shows up, they wake up at like 5:30 in the morning, they do weird things. But the message here is, indeed, you don't know how someone who you don't even expect to, he might help you. Now, you have to ask in a kind way. I would say even figure out if you have something to offer. But you'll be surprised how people are willing quite often to help you. And we have also in the ARC UK, we have benefited from people who have given their time for free. Now, I don't know if I can tell this in public, but some of the people that you see, believe me, they are very, very, very busy. And the fact that they give some of their time to this thing that they like in a channel, which particularly, we're not a big channel, but I really appreciate it. And it makes me appreciate these mentors even more. Again, not to speak about the mentors that are related.
We should talk about mentors, but we should also talk about heroes, because in a way, you've never met Alex, but he's like a mentor to you, right?
Yeah,
he's put out a whole bunch
definitely.
of materials. And you also talked about the danger that some people fall into this trap of like, I want to be like Alex, but they don't really think about, but who am I? And like, you have to pour the content into like the framework of being a hero. And that's how you should treat all heroes, right? It's like, I was into a soccer player when I was a kid. I loved him, but I wasn't aspiring to be a professional soccer player, but I love, and also Michael Flatley, the dancer, he was one of my heroes. And what it is that I liked about them, I could also apply to my life, which is, someone who's very confident and great at what they do and loves what they do. And that's the kind of messages that you can take from like, heroes or mentors that you don't actually interact with as well.
Exactly. You can, particularly in the time of the internet and the time where so many people have written so many good books, you can even have remote mentors. Okay. Number 4, and I think this is the most difficult one. Okay. Always think it can be done better. So you're Alex Epstein, right? So you work in the Ayn Rand Institute, an institute bearing the name of the person who wrote the Anti-Industrial Revolution. Or you work in the institute where it has given rise to intellectuals like Peter Schwartz, who wrote the philosophy of privation. It's very easy to believe that anything that is to be said about the environment has already been said. And yet Alex says, no, I can do it better. I can tweak it in a way that it can be more digestible. Mm-hmm. And even more, you do it once and then you say, I'm going to do it again. So I mentioned this in the New Ideal episode I did with Keith yesterday on Alex's book. To be honest with you, I wouldn't buy Alex's book. I would buy it, but I didn't rush to buy it. And here's why. I thought, come on, how better can it be from the moral case for fossil fuels? I like the moral case for fossil fuels so much that I said, there's no chance it can be better. But then I am assigned to do the podcast with Keith, so I have to read the book. And reading the book, I realized he somehow managed to find a way to make the message of the moral case for fossil fuels even better. Or at least in my eyes, there are some people who might think that delivering the moral case for fossil fuels is better. But doesn't matter. What matters is that he wasn't happy enough with it. He said, I can do it in a better way. And this reminds me of people like Steve Jobs who say, no, that's not, your phone is not good enough. It can be done in a better way. And my final message on this is this. It's so difficult to see, like in retrospect, it's very easy to see things and say, why did we do things so crappy? So for example, the Daily Objective initially was live stream on Facebook. Like, what was the point of that? Why live stream on Facebook when you can do it on YouTube? Or sometimes I watch old basketball games or highlights, and there's so many things that with retrospect, you realize, why were they doing it this way? From the way that the game was covered by the media, from the way the game was played. So there's always a better way. So having this aspiration, say, no, I'm going to do it better. I think this is something that makes someone like Alex so special, that he never compromises. He never says, okay, that's good enough.
Yeah. I was just going to look up something for you. Okay, so I have a couple of things to say about that. Fosbury flop, that's what I was trying to look up. Okay, so I'll tell you that story as well. But yes, always trying to make things better. But there's also an aspect to that, like, you can't be too critical of yourself at where you are right now. Like, I want you to be proud of yourself at where you are. So this often happens to people, especially intelligent people, where they look at their work and they say, yeah, this is pretty good, and it's at the best level that I can have it right now. But they might compare it to something else and say, hey, this isn't that great. And I always think, like, yeah, but don't do that to yourself, because, you know, you start somewhere and you're going to get better and better. Like, you wouldn't look at Mozart's First Symphony and say, like, oh man, look at how much that sucked. You know, maybe it sucked, but like it's necessary on the path to the amazing thing, is that the things before it aren't as good. Like, that's the way that it goes. So don't be discouraged by that. And then, yeah, this idea that you can always get better. I wanted to tell you the story about Fosbury. It's a high jumping story. It's a physics story. Okay, so everybody doing the high jump, they were like going over with two legs, right? And it's actually a physically like inefficient way to do it. And then there was
jumping. So put it, if this is the thing, they were jumping. If this is the belly first.
Yes, or legs first over the like, and you have to like raise your center of gravity really high to do it. And then there was this one guy, Fosbury, and he wasn't that great of a high jumper. He wasn't even that super serious about the sport. Like, he went to the Olympics, but he was out like in his van drinking, like, I don't know. But he had a better way to do it, which is that he realized that if he goes over backwards, like, your legs and your arms sort of drape down and your center of gravity is above the bar, but or it's lower than it would be otherwise, and so you don't have to jump as high. And he killed it. Like, he killed the competition handily. And he was an engineering student, and he thought, yeah, there's a better way to do this, and then he implemented it. And sometimes you can take things and now everybody does it that way. So yeah, just keep looking for the better solution. I think of it as like, long live the king is dead. So it's I'm proud of what I did today. I did it to the very best of my ability, but also I know that tomorrow I'm going to be even better. And the way to get really good is you need to reflect on your experiences. So I recommend like writing things down, what went well, and reflecting on it, like probably on a daily basis, is a good thing.
That's a very good point. And Harry Binswanger mentions this discussion he had with Ayn Rand when she was actually quite old, and he asked her, I'm paraphrasing, do you still learn things? And Rand replies, I don't know how I lived yesterday without knowing the things I know today. And this was Rand in her, I don't know, like 70s, whatever. The person who wrote Atlas Shrugged. So yeah, things can always become better. Okay, I'm gonna be a bit more rushing through the last two things. By the way, many thanks to our super chatters. Many thanks to Bonnie. By the way, dear producer, it would be a good idea for this episode. I'll give you in text the 6 points, and you put how it's called in YouTube, where you can click and go to that point. So that YouTube chapters, yeah. Since we have it written down so clear. Okay. 5th point, get out there. So Alex Epstein is really, really good in promoting himself. Let me give you 2 examples. One example is when he went to that protest holding the I love fossil fuels
That is
sign.
my favorite Alex thing ever.
Favorite Alex moment ever. So that's not easy, but it's, again, in retrospect, you say, what a great idea. And particularly, let me say this, within the objectivist universe, like 10 years ago, or whenever this happened, this was very unusual. Like, this was not your typical kind of way of spreading the message. So he experimented with stuff, and it worked. Also, he's very good on Twitter. Also, he's very good in creating opportunities on things that might not look like an opportunity. So when he got that hit piece from, what newspaper it was, I don't remember, he created a lot of noise in social media, and it worked very well for him. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Now, the caveat is, in order to do that, you need to have something to offer. So Alex is good in everything else, but the fact that he also puts himself out there, and he's not afraid to experiment with things. And again, some things do not work. He talks about how initially he had this project of being the quote intellectual bodyguard, and he said, I had absolutely zero customers. It didn't work. So you try some things work, some things don't work, but you put yourself out there, and you do it with confidence.
Yeah, and he leveraged that experience, right? It wasn't that he just went to the parade or the protests and stood there and talked with the people. He had it filmed, and then he was able to put the films out there and get them to the right people, and to make a big, to get everything out of that experience. So, of
course, having a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu helps when it comes to be one versus a crowd.
Sure.
Which brings me to the sixth and last point, which is have a good life. So Alex talks a lot about the notion of rejuvenation. And notice, he doesn't talk about, I have my work and then I have my rejuvenation. He talks about the rejuvenation when he talks about his work. So rejuvenation is part of his working system. So if I try to break it down, so he talks about the importance of the environment, where you live. So he's close to the sea, he's close to the ocean, he loves the ocean. So he goes, swim, surf, I don't know what he does. He talks about altitude walks, where you are in a position where you clear your mind, you think about your goals, about where your life is. He talks a lot about jiu-jitsu. It's something that he enjoys, how he tries to do it as often as possible, how he integrates it to everything else. So he's not someone who hates his life and he finds escape in his work, because then he wouldn't be good in his work. The work is part of his life. And from what I can say, he also has, a happy personal life. So this is something which he talks a lot about. So having a good life is important in having also a good professional life and being successful. Again, by the way, same applies for Yaron, just mentioning as someone else who also talks a lot about how important this is.
Yeah, I put it as this, I know some people that get really upset with themselves, like, I'm supposed to be working, but I really feel like going outside and taking a break. And I view taking a break as part of work. Like, it's part of what you need to do in order to work. It are those other things like, having an activity that you do, or having the time to take a walk and just kind of let your mind wander. If you have a job that's just, I don't know, at the grocery store, you take a break. That's part of the job. It's like you get paid for the break, and that's healthy and that's reasonable and rational. So yeah, the best is when you have an environment that surrounds you that's exactly set up in the way that's pleasant. You're working with the people around you that you enjoy. You're working in the manner that you like. So if you're a morning person, you get to work in the morning, or if you like long shifts like a doctor, that's what you get to do. So sort of designing your environment and your working environment for that's the perfect thing for you. That's good. It's like, I think of you, it's like you're the zoo animal in the cage, right? It's like, what does the panda want? Is the panda needs bamboo? She needs to sleep all winter, whatever it is. That's the way that you like to work. If you can engineer your environment to match that, that's when you're in the zone.
Indeed. So we've come to the end. So let me sum up the 6 things that in what we try to reverse engineer are at least part of Alex's success. 1, specialize. So figure out what you want to do and be very good at it, even if specializing means becoming a generalist.
And fail before you do it. Fail many times before you figure it out.
Fail again, fail better. 2, find good working systems and stick to them. I wish I had this. 3, have good mentors. If you don't have good mentors in your actual working environment, try to find a remote mentor or do something crazy and try to see if some of the people who you admire and don't even know you, if they would be willing somehow to interact with you or whatever.
Yeah, see if you can move in with them for a month.
I might or might have not asked Don Watkins to move in with him for 1 month in the summer and have him like an intellectual boot camp. Yeah. Okay. 4, always think that it can be done better. So again, Alex wrote a great book. Somehow he comes up with an even better book. So it can always be done in a better way. 5, get out there, put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to polarize. Don't be afraid to be visible, as long as you know your stuff and as long as you can defend yourself. I mean, intellectually not, but having the black belt is also good. And number 6, have a good life, because I mean, what's the point? The point is to have a good life, and also having a good life helps you. And what Alex calls rejuvenation helps you to be good at everything else. Where can you find more information about Alex's working systems? Go check his Human Flourishing Project. Again, anything we said today is completely unaffiliated with Alex. Alex is the one person in the objectivist universe we haven't even interacted on social media. The closest we've ever gotten is that he followed me at some point on Instagram. So this is not Alex endorsed. This is me and Amanda trying to figure out, reverse engineer, as I think the title says, his success.
Yeah.
Amanda, thank you very much. Parting words?
No, go get it. You can do it.
Go get
I
it.
don't know.
Okay. And also upcoming shows today, 10 p.m. We've got Life on Earth with Robert and Amy Nasir, and the title today is The Producer, an interview with Daniel Kraus. Oh, the actual producer.
Oh, yeah, Daniel.
Okay, Daniel, this is your time to shine. Okay. Also, I have to say that Daniel has been my accountability partner for more than a year. He's excellent. So I've tried many accountability partners. He's the only one with whom I work, and I might use him again as accountability partner for something. And the idea of accountability partner, I got it from Alex and from his Human Flourishing Project. So another reason why check him out. Okay. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nikos.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.